Welcome to the second episode of the Market Like a Millennial podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ittauer, and today, folks, we are skipping the formalities and getting right to business. We are going to teach you how to produce quality content at scale that ultimately beats the algorithm. The ultimate goal of this podcast is hopefully you take one or two things away from it and you implement them immediately. And if you get quality results, you should be able to come back and find a few more things to take and implement. And I want you to look at social media like a puzzle. If you put one or two pieces in place, the picture gets clearer. And ultimately, once that you get enough pieces in place, you'll start to see the big picture and what it means to create quality content. There's things that I'm still learning as a creator, where even though I've gotten hundreds of thousands of views on videos, there's still things that I discover each and every day that I can implement and take my content to the next level. So I hope that I start you on that journey for yourself, and we can ultimately get you to the point where you're creating quality content that performs well on its own. Now, this is going to be a tough podcast to get through because ultimately there's so many different places that we can start. But one of the most important aspects is being able to track your performance. We can't get better if we don't know where we're at. And so if you're not tracking your performance, one of the things that you can do is create a baseline. What we are going to do is we're going to take a group of videos. One of the things I like to do is taking all the videos that I produced in a quarter and averaging out the overall views. That will give me a good and accurate baseline to measure myself going forward. So right now, my baseline is between 2,000 to 3,000 views. If I have videos that fall within that range, that means that it was a decent piece of content. However, if it outperforms that baseline, that means that it did better and I might want to run sponsored ads around it. If it went below that baseline, it's something for me to study and ultimately get better and figure out what I did wrong in that video. So there's no wrong answer when it comes to creating content, right? There's no bad video. All it is a lesson going forward in how we produce our content. So if we have a piece of content that does well, doesn't mean that we're going to consistently get those amount of views. We just hit a chord with that piece of content. We had a piece of content that resonated with our audience. And we have to remember when we're talking about the algorithm, that the algorithm is the audience, because whether it's foreign or domestic, which means if they follow me or if they are a non-follower, Instagram is going to push my content out to a small percentage of people who follow me and who don't follow me. The reaction of those people, whether they're spending a significant amount of time on that piece of content, or if they decide to comment, share it with a friend, or save it, that's going to be the ultimate judge of whether it gets pushed up within people's feeds. So when we talk about the algorithm is the audience. So once that we establish a baseline that lets us know where we are at, and once that we're able to judge whether our videos are performing well with the people that are seeing it, or whether our content is not connecting or resonating, then we can start moving forward and start creating our own authentic styles of content that we are going to create by sitting there and looking at what people are wanting from us to begin with, right? So once that we understand what content is performing well, we can then start producing authentic styles of content that we ultimately make our own over time. Most of these apps that we are performing on each and every day, they are merit-based. That's why one video will get 500 views, and then you'll have another one that gets 3,500 views. So if they're merit-based, we have to find out what gives our videos merit. And the audience lets us know by consuming our content. Whether you have a good video, whether it's a bad video, either way, there's a lesson to be learned. It's time that you guys start looking into those lessons, and that's going to get you further down the road. If we are producing content daily, as we should be, then at some point in time, we will become a master at one of those styles that we created. For me, it might be a drone video, right? Or it might be me in the field explaining a problem. Or it could be me doing a product demo. But each and every time that I cut one of those videos, I am actively making myself better at producing that content. And one day, I'll become a master. Either way, my audience wants to see it from me because I have tracked it and I know that going forward. That's ultimately how you form a community, how you build a foundation to grow on these different social media platforms. Now, one of the consistent things that I've talked about over and over again on other people's podcasts, over 20 of them, I tell everyone the most important aspect of social is being social, engaging with your community, having conversations with them. Most importantly, you got to understand every view, every conversation is a path forward within your relationship with your audience. So if you're not reaching out to them, if you're not having conversations with the individuals that follow you, or even if they're just stopping in to comment on a video, you're ultimately not watering your flowers, right? And what happens to flowers that we don't water? They die. So for someone like me, it's vital to communicate with your audience. And if anything, I think it's my duty as a creator to support them in their journey. Now, there are legitimate hacks in the way that you can construct your content that I would suggest everyone looking into. And I think it's important to recognize that. However, I don't think it's something that you can look up and say, well, hey, let me post at this time, and that's going to get me a better result. It's much more complicated than that. But you have to understand that every aspect of a post matters, whether it's the hashtags that you use, whether it's the way that you construct your captions, or even the amount of time between each frames and what audio you use. All of it can potentially have an effect on how your content does. But is that the focus? I don't think so. For me personally, I want to create something that's organic, that's true to myself. I want to use the audio that I want to use. Every aspect of the video I want to create myself. But I also want to pay attention to the way that it reacts. For example, I had a caption that did very well on a video, and I reused certain sections of that caption in future posts because I ultimately wanted to see if somehow it had an SEO effect on the content, and it did. So now I know that going forward. So that's the way I think that you should pay attention to the hacks, because ultimately, if you're able to dissect any aspect of the video that's going to help it do better, you now know that going forward. And then you can study it and say, well, why did this caption do better than other captions? What words were used in that caption that made a difference? Is there an SEO effect that some words have? I believe personally there is. And I have adapted my writing style in my captions to use certain words. And it has had a positive effect on my performance. So ultimately, do I believe that it exists? 100%. Now also, to take another step forward, I had a reel that was 30 seconds long, right? I sped up the reel to around 15 seconds and paired it with a different audio. Synced up perfectly, didn't have to do anything to it. It outperformed the 30-second video by over 15,000 views. There are things that you can do that affects the performance of your post, and you want to experiment with those different things. Now, in all honesty, I got to shoot you straight. I can't lie to you guys. The type of content that's being put out currently, you can see the effort that was involved, especially with reels. And most of the videos that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis misses the mark. And you can tell that there wasn't much effort put in. However, if the effort in learning the process of producing the content was taken, that can change. And then there's other contractors that you'll see once in a blue moon. They'll come out with a great video that connects on all levels. They get the response. It's a complete home run. And then there's no follow-up video. Or if there is a follow-up video, it's underwhelming. So there's no continuation of that momentum that they have. So when you do have a viral video, if you are lucky enough to have a couple videos get 5,000 to 10,000 views, take the time to recognize why those videos are doing well and learn to execute in a similar fashion in future videos. So as we get our reps in, as we continue to push ourselves forward each and every day by producing content, what we want is to develop ourselves into a machine that puts out content, right? I don't rely on anyone else to produce my content. I do it all myself. This podcast, I'm producing myself. That saves me a ton of money. It allows me to be efficient in producing content and doing it whenever I want to, whether it's around a Christmas party, whether it's doing a product review, whether it's flying a drone, whether it's cutting up the drone videos that I have. Ultimately, I can do everything myself. I created myself into a machine that produces content. And that's the best thing that you can do for your business, because of the amount of money that I've saved myself, the amount of money that I've saved my father. That's what makes us different than every other contractor in the country. You know, there's people that have large marketing budgets that are eaten into by people who are ineffective at producing content for people. And they pay it because at the end of the day, they don't want to put in the work to learn the process. And I have people make up excuses. They want their content to be primo stuff, represents their company the best, right? Ultimately, those 3 pieces of content that you generated with a company that cost you $10,000, you're only going to be able to run sponsored ads around them. That's not going to build your brand. You can only use them a few times. When are you going to chip in to ultimately get the dividends of creating content daily that's going to hopefully eventually get you thousands of views if you do it consistently enough? I think I speak for every advertisement agency in roofing when I say they need more organic content from you to do their job better, right? Quit blaming the marketing company. Because at the end of the day, they only have what's in control in their hands. Are they going to come out, fly out to wherever you are and produce content? I want to see the price tag on that. That's going to be expensive. Or are you going to settle for them to just produce, digital things that they throw together, whether they do it themselves or on Fiverr? That's what you're dealing with a marketing agency. But if you just gave them the content, it would give them much more to work with and run targeted ads around. So I hope you take this seriously, because if you do buy into this, if you do invest in learning the process and being in this for a long time, which if you plan on running a company for the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see more of a gradual kind of approach towards only producing digital content. Mail is too expensive, much more expensive than it was. Door to door will always be a thing for the people that are good at it. And Google is very expensive. Google, one thing I never understood about Google, it's $20 a click, right? So that adds up quick, if you're not getting business off of it. The one thing about social is that if you learn how to operate organically, it's free. It costs me nothing. I've saved my father tons of money I save myself tons of money by being efficient in learning how to fly my own drone, learning how to cut up my own content, being a practitioner rather than wanting everything handed to me. That's the message that we're going to leave on today. I want you to know after a while, it might be frustrating at first. The more that you produce content, you can pull views and have fun doing it. It's a good time, I promise you. Thank you guys so much. This is not going to be the end of this topic. I didn't even get half of the stuff I wanted to get to today. Get out there, start learning the craft, and be a better practitioner of producing content. I'm already looking forward to next time, and we'll see you soon.